What is up, everybody? Welcome back to tiktok.youtube.twitch.tv/ScrawVGC. I'm Scraw, and today we're going to be talking about Series 13. So those of you who do not know, Series 13 is the new format where basically anything goes. Restricteds are legal, mythicals are legal, no limit on how many of each you're allowed to bring, and it's kind of crazy. So Z, the Smogon VGC head, did the first ever Best of 3 Series 13 tournament. Basically, the day it got announced, I played in it. It ended up being like 30-ish people, a lot of really strong players in it. Z played in it, a bunch of regional winners played in it. And so we're just going to take a look at basically the format. So to start, I want to preface this, I got second. Very good to me, very good. And the guy that beat me is terrific. We had very similar teams. And if you notice something very interesting, everyone's excited about mythicals, like Jirachi, Mew, whatever. Neither of us are playing any. Why? Because I think they all kinda suck. And there's only one or two that are decent, and I think they're only decent in very niche scenarios. So basically, we're gonna go over my team, show you one or two games from the event, and basically why I don't think the mythicals are very good. Okay, so this is the team. My friend Scarlet built it. If you've watched this channel before, you're familiar with Scarlet. Scarlet really helps me with everything I do. I kind of think of her as my VGC mentor in a way. So Whimsicott, what do you expect? Energy Ball, because I just, I actually don't know why Energy Ball. I guess to hit Groudon, and we didn't know Gastrodon wasn't going to really be a Pokemon in this format at the time. Turns out it really isn't. Then double speed control, Tailwind, Cotton Spore. I think that's really good, especially at the beginning of the season when everyone's pretty much going to want to go fast, and Helping Hand to do a lot of damage. Choice Specs Calyrex. Why? Because a lot of legendaries means a lot of stats, means a lot of bulk. I just want to hit them in the head. If I want to beat other Calyrexes, I'm not doing it with my Calyrex anyway. And honestly, because of something we'll talk about in a few minutes, Calyrex is a mon that's basically a check, where if they don't have a certain Pokemon, then you can bring Calyrex, and if they do, you don't. So when Calyrex is good, it's very good, so might as well just hit them as hard as you can. Next, Kyogre with Assault Vest. The Assault Vest is one of the very few changes I made to this team from the original version that Scarlet had. Just bulky, Dynamax Kyogre. Groudon is a lot less common in this format, and Gastrodon is basically a non-factor, so the things that make Dynamax Kyogre a little scary to play with basically don't exist. Next, we have Zacian. You all know Zacian. Zacian is going to do the same thing it does in every format. You're going to get speed control, you're going to click Behemoth Blade, you're going to kill things. And now here's something that was really interesting in this format. I think Yveltal is actually the best restricted in this format, and it's almost always defensive, bulky, Assault Vest, Safety Goggles, something like that. Just because Calyrex is on every team because it's so generically good, and there's no limit on how many restricteds you can bring. There's basically no reason not to bring one of the Calyrexes. And once that becomes the case, Yveltal becomes this insane check. I have Tailwind and Taunt on this one to deal with Amoonguss and just speed control in general. Yveltal is a really hard Pokemon to deal with if you lead Calyrex, Whimsicott, and Yveltal is the reason I'm on Choice Specs Calyrex. Because if you see a Yveltal, especially if you're in a best of one scenario, you basically never want to bother trying to bring your Calyrex Shadow Rider.
Nope.
So you don't really need the Sash, because you're basically not bringing it if it's being threatened very well. But if they don't bring it, might as well just nuke everything you can, right? And then the last mon here is Regieleki, special, max speed, max special attack, Electro Web, so you can have speed control outside of Dynamax, Hyper Beam, so you can have while you're in Dynamax, and just hitting really hard. Surprisingly, Regielecki's been kind of a late game piece in this format, where it's you Dynamax it late, and as long as you've gotten through their threats, you kind of just start deleting things, especially because, as I said before, Groudon is for some reason just really not a factor in this format. So that's really the team. It's nice and simple, nothing crazy here. Just get speed control and smack. Something interesting that I wanted to try but ended up not is you never actually click Mudshot with Calyrex, right? So something I've been thinking about is putting Shadow Ball in that slot on the Choice Specs build. Because Choice Specs Shadow Ball Calyrex one-shots Lunala most of the time. So if they have a Lunala and they click Wide Guard, which is a move we've seen a little bit more of in this format than in Series 12, then you get to Oko the Lunala basically for free. So that's something to consider. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a look at some of the restricteds, or not the restricteds, the mythicals, and talk about why I don't think a lot of them are very good. Alright, so let's start looking at Mew. Mew has 100 in every stat. Mew can learn every TR and every TM. It has good defenses, it has good offenses, it's super versatile. So what? The issue with Mew is that it does a lot of things, but it's not the best at doing any one of those things. You want to do Snarl stuff, you should just be playing an Incineroar. It even has better defensive typing. If you want to guess physical sweeper or a special sweeper, there are Pokemon that don't have the wasted stats and have a higher attack or special attack. There are Pokemon that are faster. The only thing Mew actually does that's unique, really, is that it gets Transform and Imprison. But theoretically, if you hit Imprison, then hit Transform, you can lock someone out, right? So, like, that's pretty cute. It's a thing. Is it a 2-turn thing? That doesn't really work if the mon you're not transforming into just knocks you out? Yes. It has a place in, like, Best of 1, where there's a lot of value to your opponent not knowing what kind of Mew you're running, but beyond that, I really don't see it. Now, another one that people, I'm sure, thought would be really good, really isn't, is Jirachi, right? Like, everyone knows, like, the Serene Grace Iron Head, very powerful, right? Like, Steel Psychic typing is pretty bad when Yveltal and Calyrex Shadow Rider are the two biggest mons, and honestly, beyond the Serene Grace stuff, like, what else does Jirachi really do? It has the same wasted stats problem as Mew has, with a completely perfectly balanced 100s across the board. Or is it 100 across the board for this one? Yeah, it is. And, like, that's not what VGC's about. Like, you need to be good at your role. You can't just be good, you can't be okay at everything, you have to be good at your role. If I could take a Pokemon that's good at everything, or a Pokemon that's great at the role I need it to be, like, for example, Incineroar is, I would take that Pokemon every time. You all know this. Now, let's look at the Pokemon that are, like, good. Like, the only mythical that I'm just like, yes, like, objectively, this is a good Pokemon. Magearna, right? Like, so Magearna is slow and gets Trick Room, right? Like, it has Trick Room, it has good typing. So, like, it's basically special Zacian. I think it's worse than Zacian, to be clear. But it's a similar role where it's like, you need to have an answer. I really like that Magearna synergizes really well with, like, Trick Room plus Redirection, like Trick Room plus Follow Me, or Trick Room plus Rage Powder. It hasn't really panned out the way I thought it was going to, but just, like, Dynamax Magearna in Trick Room is really hard to deal with without giving it everything it wants. It's going to get bulky, but it's going to get to do its thing if you set it up, but you have to set it up. It's like, it's a side grade to other Trick Room sweepers. Like, do I think it's better than Palkia in this metagame? Yes. Do I think it's very snowbally, just like the Calyrexes are? Yes. Do I think it has good defensive typing and a good move pool? Yes. Like, it is strong. But people are trying to play it in Tailwind teams and teams without Trick Room, and I think it's just Shiny Toy Syndrome, where it's cool, it's an interesting mon that we've got to play with before, so people are playing it too much, and I think that's the case for a lot of the restrictions. I think a lot of them are going to just stop showing up, and I think the Gearnos is just going to basically learn its place. It's going to sit, it's going to be in a Trick Room team, it's going to be good there, and everyone's going to stop trying to play it everywhere else. Now, the other restricted, there's two more that I want to talk about. The next one's Melmetal. Melmetal just, it has, like, good stats for being a Trick Room punchy boy. It hits. Why is it default to, that's really funny that it defaults to not 31 attack IV on this guy. Because Double Iron Bash is a really strong move. It's like, basically with a 51% chance to crit, and hitting twice with Iron Fist ends up being, like, a very high base power move. Like, that is strong. There's no argument with that. Its special defense isn't the best, but give it an Assault Vest, or give it put Trick Room in first, and it's fine. The big thing about Melmetal is that it underspeeds Cali Ice and hits it really hard. Like, you play Melmetal to win the Trick Room Mirror, or, like, if you really want, as, like, a Trick Room threat, kind of like a Mungus. I think a Mungus is worse than a Mungus at that job, but, like, it has a place. And unfortunately, for, like, the Mythical fans, like, I think all the Mythicals, at least in this format, their whole shtick is some of them have a place. None of them are broken. None of them are format-defining. I think the most format-defining Pokemon are Calyrex, Shadow Rider, and Yveltal. But Melmetal and Magearna have place. Now, the last Pokemon I'm not a believer in, but a lot of people are, is Volcanion. Volcanion has, like, good defenses, good defensive typing, like, 4 times Resist Behemoth Blade.
Boom.
Like, Water Absorbs gets through Kyogre, unless they have Thunder, of course. And, like, it's unique. Like, there isn't another Fire Water type that we can play with, and it has good special attack. So I've seen, like, Weakness Policy, I've seen Assault Fist, usually a Dynamax target. I think it needs too much work for what it does, right? Like, especially because in Dynamax, its stabs fight each other. Like, you click Max Flare, you really don't want to click Max either the next turn, and vice versa, so you almost lock yourself in. So I don't love it, but I see why people think it's okay. It's like a good defensive mon. It's a little slow for Tailwind, a little too fast for Trick Room, but this one I could be wrong about. The other Mythicals, they don't do anything better than things that already exist. I think if we had a format where it was no restricteds, but we had mythicals, this might be a whole different tune. But unfortunately for the mythicals, unfortunately for everybody, because, like, mythicals are cool. Like, they are cool, exciting mobs. That's why they're event exclusives, because they have cool designs, they do cool things, but they're really just, they're not that strong compared to things like Calyrex, or Zacian, or Yveltal. And that's really where we sit. So, if you're playing a restricted, and it's not Magearna, and it's not Melmetal, you gotta justify it to me. I just do not see the value. Alright, so here's game 1 of the match. So they led Whimsicott, Calyrex, I led Whimsicott, and Regieleki, just trying to go as fast as I possibly could. And I think I went for an early game Dynamax here, yeah I did. Now here's something really interesting. So they switcherooed in Lagging Tail, which is something I don't remember if I saw when we played in the Swiss. If we did, my bad. And that trick ended up mattering a lot, because now our Tailwinds are staggered, plus Lagging Tail, so I'm just not going to have speed control the rest of this game. Let's give it to Whimsicott, which I really couldn't do favorably. So that put them at a really crazy good advantage. We end up in this spot. Now, they are forced to switch their Calyrex out because of the Tailwind, not the Tailwind, because of the Cotton Spore. But as long as they just, like, make sure I don't do enough damage to these next few turns, which they do very well, they'll end up winning in the late game, right? Like you saw there, the switch plus the Sunny Day to really mitigate Kyogre's damage, because I already Dynamaxed and lost 2 Mons, so I couldn't reset the Rain. And, like, this Play Rough does take out the Yveltal, but then they bring in their Zacian, and they have a turn of Tailwind left. I don't. My Kyogre's Assault Vest, so I know I'm taking a big chunk there. And they end up Dynamaxing their Calyrex just to, like, guarantee they're doing as much damage as they possibly can. And I think this guaranteed the kill on my Kyogre with the minus defense. And then my Zacian can't OHKO theirs, and that ends up being game 1. So what I could have done differently in that game was I really should have remembered the Lagging Tail, because I'm pretty sure I saw it in our match in the Swiss, and not gone for that Aleki Dynamax. That's what's so important about Team Preview. Because if I had brought my Yveltal there, things might have been a little different. But let's see how we adjust in game 2. So going into game 2, music, we end up having very similar leads. Actually, we lead the exact same way. I don't remember exactly how this starts. No, I think we both Tailwind. Oh, it was Tailwind Switcheroo, and I think they, like, tried to go for my Whimsicott right away. Now, this was really interesting, because it meant that... I don't know if this was the idea, but this protects their Whimsicott, which mattered a lot. I think I go for the Electro Web here. I do, and I miss the Whimsicott, which doesn't matter too much, because Trick's not really a factor anymore. And I do take out their Zacian. And then they have their Calyrex, but Aleki is Aleki. They're out of their other speed control, and this game pretty much goes lead thing from this point. These games have been all about speed control. Just game 1, I played into the Lagging Tail. Game 2, I didn't, and that really was the entire difference both games. Which is pretty wild when you think about it. Now, I did go for the Calyrex there, because I figured there'd be a Max Guard. And then it's just, a 3v1, and they're not going to get me from there. Now, this game is where things go kind of crazy. So they lead Calyrex, Zacian, I lead Whimsicott, Zacian, and I think I won. I thought this lead was fantastic for me, and that I couldn't have gone better. And then I protect Cotton Spore, figuring that they're going to try and get really aggressive, and I do get that protect there, and then this happens. The second I saw that Trick Room, I was like, oh, okay, I lose. And there's been a lot of these, like, just 4th move slot, here's a Trick Room on Calyrex. And at least when I've been playing, I'm just gonna, like, let this play while I talk, it's not gonna matter. Well, I've been playing, there's been, like, 2 or 3 times, which is, like, very much a team that looks like mine, like, very high speed control, and then they just hit the Trick Room, because they say, I'm not gonna have this, like, Cotton Spore, Airstream, Tailwind fight. I'm gonna let you do whatever you're gonna do, click Trick Room, and get my advantage that way. And it has been really effective, and that's something we haven't really seen in Series 12, and I would say the reason is because there's a lot more, like, slow teams. Trick Room's a lot rarer in this season. I think it's still strong, but just the amount of just, like, pure, like, go fast teams there are, I think just, there is going to be a weird amount of matches where just because you did not click a speed control move, like, you're going to be slower, which is really interesting. And, honestly, like, kudos to Spurific for figuring that out so fast. But as you can see here, this is really going to be the end of the game. But yeah, Series 12 was interesting, a little homogeneous. Series 13 feels a lot simpler in a way, in that the amount of Pokemon that are viable are a lot less. But it makes for some really interesting micro decisions in that one move slot, or that one, or just like that one or two like points when you're EV and IVing your Pokemon. So thanks for watching. Hopefully next time I make one of these videos, it won't be about how I almost won, it'll be about how I won. And I'll see you all next time.